much to lose, 'cause I've seen better days. I've been star of minute plays. I've seen better days. And the bottom drops out. I've seen better days. I've been star of minute plays. I've seen better days.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Bill on Bikes. I'm Bill Miko, my facility, Motorcycle Garage in Phoenix, Arizona. Today is August 6, 2025. And what do we have here? Well, this is the Trike, custom Trike that we had to go in and fix all kinds of problems with probably 8 months ago. Get a call from my client. He says, hey, I'm up on the highway. I was doing 70 miles an hour. I felt like the bike lost power. It went from 70 to 60. The engine didn't get noisy. And I looked in the mirror and I could see blue smoke. So we noticed some oil on the bike, whatever. These are the type of videos you don't want to make. Obviously, things don't always go correctly. Something has gone wrong in this engine. If you go back and see the previous two videos we did on this Trike, it was a mess. But we did do an S&S 110 kit. And here I am sticking up for S&S because I always hear of these problems with cylinders out around and all these issues. I haven't had any. Is this my first issue with an S&S kit? I don't know. I mean, in all transparency, I have to be honest and say if it's something with the top end or whatever, I have to eat it. That's part of being in business. If it's something with the oil pump or something like that, you know, I have to eat it. The only thing that I could foresee would be out of my control is if we wouldn't, maybe if the crank shifted. Now, I always have my paperwork handy, and I went back and looked. And I always write down when I check crank runout. Whenever I do an engine, like any good technician should do, you note what the crank runout was. He was at 3.5 thousandths, which is not that bad. And in the ideal world would have 0, but the reality is most are between 3.5 thousandths. That's just kind of what we deal with. And pages and pages of parts that we used on this bike because there was a lot that went on. And I think my total hours, which I note here, all handwritten, I had 89.5 hours in this bike. And if you go back and watch those other two videos, you'll see all the work that went into this, from repainting, rebuilding the engine, all that stuff. So, as you can see, I already started the teardown process. At the beginning of this video, you saw me pull the inner primary. You're probably saying, well, why did he go and do that already? I'll tell you why. I've noticed the oil tank, which I did run this prior because he told me he didn't hear an engine noise, so I ran it for like 30 seconds, maybe a little bit longer. I wanted to hear it because he just said he didn't hear any catastrophic noise. And I didn't either. The actual engine's quiet. I noticed about a quart of oil missing. So in the meantime, I've let it sit. This bike's been here probably for about a week before I started doing the teardown because I wanted to record this for you guys to see what goes on inside a shop. Things aren't always perfect. I know the internet makes things look like everything goes perfectly. It doesn't. And this is part of owning a business. So I noticed the oil tank is empty. That tells me there's something going on with the pump because there's no way it should be empty in a week. I've pointed out in other videos in the twin cam B engines how there's two separator plates and then there's a separator spring. That spring goes between the two plates and it helps the oil stay in the oil tank so it won't sump into the lower end. That obviously isn't happening. I'm assuming there's damage to the pump. So I need to go pull the top end. We're gonna take the cam plate out, look at the oil pump, and try to determine what's going on here. Did a cylinder disintegrate and have an issue, causing the pump to go, metal to get through in the oil tank and damaging the pump? Did the crank run out go? One issue with a big vehicle like this, a Trike, everybody thinks cranks go out just from wicking the throttle wide open. That's not what it is. Oftentimes, downshifting. You downshift aggressively, you have all this traction on the road, it puts a lot of stress on the lower end and they can shift. That's an issue that Harley has had for a while. And I think I mentioned in the past, most of the engine jobs, the guys come in for like a cam plate, oil pump, in a twin cam, and even M8s, and maybe 1 in 100, maybe 2 in 100, that I'll get in there, we'll do our crank run out and we'll say, oh man, the crank's at 6 thousandths, we can't run it. It doesn't happen as often as people will lead you to believe. On higher horsepower bikes or a bike that is aggressively downshifted, it can be an issue. So you're gonna come along with me, we're gonna complete the disassembly, and we're gonna figure out what's going on. Oh, and one more point. Now that I see there's no oil in the tank, I did look in there with a flashlight, I see some small debris. I haven't taken a magnet or anything to check, I will while we have it on video and see if it's metal or if it's aluminum. It's hard to tell in the bottom of the tank, it's just shiny. So I already know we're gonna have to flush the tank and all the lines. I am going to have to pull the engine and split the cases and clean everything up no matter what. So that's the main reason the inner primary, as you saw at the beginning of the video, is already been disassembled. So why don't you guys join me and we'll get going with the rest of the disassembly. Thanks for watching.
Now my cup's filled up with $5 wine. I find myself here all the time. Another rip in the glass, another chip in my tooth.
Okay, we have the rockers and the head bolts removed. Let's remove the front and rear head. We'll take a look and see if we can see any damage inside the cylinders. I'm not thinking we're going to see anything, probably in the cylinder itself on top, the top side of the piston. You know, obviously we can't see the spigot and everything on the bottom side. So let's pull it together and take a look. I'm going to reposition the camera. All right, not sure this will help you guys see much better, but we'll take a shot. There's the oil drips all over the floor. That's wonderful, but there's no head damage. Head looks nice and clean, at least in the front. I didn't really suspect that we would have anything there because the bike was not making noise. It actually seemed to be running okay. The rear off. Take a look here. Again, the head itself on the combustion chamber side looks good. Nothing really to worry about there. And I'm gonna grab a flashlight and let's see if I can see down in that rear cylinder. Anything going on here? I see some scoring here for sure. I definitely have scoring in the rear cylinder for sure. Don't necessarily see it in the front, but the rear for sure has scoring. To me, that looks from heat, definitely some heat, and I see a little material transfer here. So something with the rear for sure. Now we have to figure out what's caused that. Oh, and I do see a little scoring here in the front right there. So both cylinders are showing me some wear. Definitely some material transfer right here. I'm gonna do some more investigating here, but I have to decide whether this is a pump issue or a cylinder happened first and then a pump. So that's where I'm at right this particular minute. Okay, so let's get the cylinders off and we'll take a look here. Sucks to get old. You need glasses. Yeah, see, I see some. I don't think the camera would ever pick this up. How could I do this? Possibly, guys. I'm gonna try here. Real high production stuff here, guys. Okay, maybe you can see this heat transfer. That kind of almost aluminum color. If you can see that. Get my big head out of it. I just don't think you can, but maybe in here. That's material that is transferred from the piston to the cylinder wall. Not good. Why can that happen? Well, possibly that's a breakdown of the oil. I can smell the oil is burnt. And of course, we're gonna set this down not on the spigot because I am gonna wanna measure these cylinders again. Initially, when I assembled this engine, I mean, I looked at them, I measured them up, they were round, so I'm not really sure we're having a cylinder issue here. I think this came after the fact, honestly. I'm still gonna protect the studs, and the reason is these are hardened, they stretch with heat, and we don't want to damage the stud or scratch it. And you can see here on the thrust face here on the back side of the piston where the material came from. I'm gonna see if I can give you a shot of that. Better thought, instead of moving the camera and trying to jam it in here, very in this tight space, I'm gonna remove the piston anyway, and once I do that, I'll try to get you a good shot of it. So let's get the rear cylinder up and see if we can see what's going on here. So it seems like it's sticking a little bit. Normally it would come up easier than this. These don't have a base gasket. These are just O-ring. Yeah, that's pretty tight. I'm being as gentle as possible not to damage these spigots. They're so thin. Gently remove this. Yeah, same thing, material transfer. I want to look under the spigot here. Now it's funny, I was on my phone just 2 days ago with Tom, my buddy Tom Spur that you've seen on the channel before doing the dyno work. And yeah, this cylinder has had some pretty good transfer here. I'll do that quick. I will stamp that after with a little, I have a little stamp set and I'll stamp it into the aluminum so I definitely don't have to rely on a magic marker because that might come off, cause an issue. Anyway, I was talking to Tom and he was doing a dyno run on a bike recently. I think he said just a couple weeks ago. And he heard a little bit of noise out of the rear cylinder. So he started to investigate, tried to look at it with a bore scope. By the way, I have a beautiful bore scope. Things like $700. I think I've used it twice. The problem with the bore scope is, yes, you can see in the cylinder, but you can't see what's going on underneath. And the reason I bring that up is Tom had a similar issue, rear cylinder, had a little bit of noise, bike was down on power, pulled the heads, looked great. He's like, wow. He said, well, I'm gonna go further. He pulled the cylinder, and sure enough, the spigot was completely cracked at the bottom of the cylinder where it mates up with the case. So it just shows you, you never would have seen that with a bore scope. I use that more in my forensics business because I can take still shots, I can video. I've used it in a transmission before because sometimes we're not allowed to do destructive testing. It's all non-destructive till you get to a certain point. So I can't really disturb things. That's a good time to have a camera to be able to go in there and take a look. So, but in this case, I knew it was pulling the engine down anyway. So we do have material transfer here on the back. Both the rear cylinder is much worse. The rear piston is much worse than the front. Once I get the pistons pulled, I'll show you a good shot of them, and we're going to get the oil pump, cam support plate, and all that out next, so we can take a look at that. And then I want to be able to rotate the crank. We're going to check the run out again. We got to figure out what happened here. This is a full S&S kit. May not be anything to do with this. I don't know yet. Let's find out. Again, the only way this isn't warrantyable would be if the crank shifted. That's above and beyond my pay grade. Or if a lower end bearing went or something like that. But we're not to that point yet. I'm thinking this is probably going to cost me a lot of labor time, and you know, S&S is usually pretty good. I'm sure they'll cover their parts because they have in the past, from what I understand. I haven't run into issues with their big bore kit. I've been lucky, but this could be the first one. I'm not sure. So let's keep tearing it down, and I really appreciate you guys watching this. I hope it's helpful. Like, subscribe. I never thought I'd have as many followers as I do, and I'm getting close to that maybe 5,000 mark. I'd love to get there maybe by the end of the year. I think I have, I don't know, 3,500 of you guys watch, and I haven't been able to put out enough videos recently. I'm just so busy in the shop. Again, one-man show. I have bikes sent to me from all over the country. I mean, just in the last month, I've had bikes from New Mexico. I got bikes coming from Philly, Minneapolis, and I actually have another bike coming in from Houston. So, and that's not counting all my local guys. That's just the out-of-towners. So I really appreciate it, though, and I appreciate you guys watching in the comments. So let's keep moving and see if we can figure this out together. I had a heck of a time removing the wrist pin. This has had a lot of heat. You can see that on the pin. Just a little discoloration, a little blueness. I know some discoloration at the spigot area. The rear is worse than the front. And there's that material, maybe right there. You can kind of get a shot of it right here. You can see the material missing. This thrust face looks fine. Now in the rear, both are in pretty bad shape. And these are CP Carrillo pistons. That's who makes these for S&S. And I've also marked the top front with an arrow. Normally I always take the wrist pin clips out of the same side. I couldn't in this situation because they were kind of frozen. They didn't want to move. So again, that's from the heat and some material moving around here. This is the rear piston. You can see a lot more damage on both thrust faces. A lot more material has been transferred. So you can see we've had some heat. You can see the bluing here on the wrist pin. Okay guys, the tappets really didn't look bad at all. All the rollers are good, no real excessive wear. Let's get the cam cover off. You're gonna see a lot of oil come out because all that oil that's not in the tank is in here in the lower end. All right, let's see here. The big reveal. There's all that oil. Boy, the oil is really smells burnt, but man, it's dark, but I'm not seeing like excessive metal. That's a little surprising, honestly. A little surprising. There is some on the magnet. Very light stuff, but on the magnet here, which is one thing that's great, that S&S has a magnet where like fueling doesn't. In a situation like this, just trying to think for a second how I want to remove this instead of how I normally would. I think instead of removing it as a unit, I'm going to try to keep the pump on the shaft. I will loosen all the screws, remove them all, and see if I can get behind here to keep the pump in place instead of connected. If normally when I pull it, will come out with the cams and the obviously the cam support plate, but I want to leave it in here and see what we have. So all right, let's do that. Obviously the 4 pump screws are longer. These have washers on there. I want to make sure I capture those. I have to get in here with my wedge to be able to hold this in. Let's see. gently remove this. Oop, the screen just fell out, but that's normal. Boy, the cam lobes and everything look perfect. So you take a look at this, guys. You can see the cam plate and everything. The lobes all look good here. The bearing surfaces look good. You can tell the chain tensioner was working. There's oil still in there. Let's see what's going on with the pump. INA bearings look good. Or the Torringtons, I should say, not INAs. INAs are the ones you take out. Torringtons look good, which are a full complement needle bearing. Those look good. Some movement there in that pump. Let's see. This is where it can get interesting, guys. We got to figure out what's going on here. This is our oil screen for the tappets. It has very little debris. Almost, and honestly, almost zero. I don't really see anything in there. Okay. Well, again, I think the magnet helped us. Gotta be honest, guys. I thought maybe we were gonna have some broken teeth on the pump, or really doesn't look bad. Obviously, I'm gonna get into this more and clean it after, but this is just an initial observation. O-ring's in position. Yeah, the O-ring must be on the plate. Okay, so those were in position. Well, let's check our crank run out, guys. Let's see. This is not as bad as I thought, honestly.
All the cracks, so I guess there ain't no use. 'Cause I've seen better days. I've been
Okay, guys, as you can see, I've taken the case out. Obviously, I want to make sure these are totally clean so we don't have any issues during the reassembly. I've been on the phone with Scott and Chris over at S&S. No problem. They're sending out replacement parts, so we're going to be able to reassemble this. So pretty much it's my labor and S&S with the parts. It'll be no charge, obviously, to my customer, which, you know, you got to guarantee your work. This is part of being in business. The part that's not always fun, doesn't happen very often. This is the first S&S big bore kit that I've personally had fail on me. I've heard of others, but I know I'm very careful with the cylinders. If you go back to the earlier video, like I said, you know, I never set them on the spigots. Make sure they're totally clean. So they're sending the parts, which are great. I'm going to get these cases split. I just want to show you something too. You'll see a couple slots here, one on the front, one on the back side of the case. You very gently get in there with a screwdriver to start prying these apart. These have been sitting for a while. Once I get them apart far enough, I take a wedge and I wedge in there, and I do the same on the front. You have to take your time. If you start just jamming away with the screwdriver, you can actually crack this piece out of the case. The same with the front. So you could crack this here and just cause a big problem. So we don't want to do that. You got to take your time. You might see another set of cases over here. This is out of a good customer of mine's. This is an I think his is an 07 Softail also, where we were doing some other work. We were actually going to split the cases because they were leaking. It's an older bike, and the rods are frozen. So in one position, they actually stick together. So we're actually going to put a new crank in that. That was going to be a separate video, but now that I'm doing this lower end, it's like I probably won't do my buddy Gabriel's bike. But anyway, so we're going to get these cases split, get everything cleaned up, go through everything, reassemble. I'll pop the cases back in the chassis, and once I have the S&S 110 kit, you know, in the building, we'll go ahead and do a reinstallation and get my guy back on the road. So stick around. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and let's keep rocking.
I've seen better days.
Okay, guys, as you can see, we have our crankcases split, obviously. Flywheels are out. I really don't see much contamination here. I think I got very lucky. All the bearing surfaces look good. This oil, you know, obviously it's black, but it's relatively free of aluminum contaminants. I may see a little stuck down here in the corner. As you can see, very fine. So I think we really dodged a bullet with this. We're gonna completely clean the cases, get everything cleaned up, nice. I will go through and look at all the bearings, see if the lower end bearings need to be replaced. I'm not sure yet till I really take a look, but the inner race looks absolutely perfect. So if I can get everything cleaned up and probably get the lower end back together, I'd like to get the cases sealed up and get the lower end reassembled in the chassis, and then I'll install the S&S kit while the cases are in the frame. It just makes it easier for me lifting. These things are heavy. So I used to, you know, back in the day, be able to wrestle the thing in there and line it all up, but I am 63 now, so I want to not hurt myself and wreck my lower back. We're not looking that bad, I don't think. That's much cleaner than I thought it would be. Same with this side. I do see a little contamination that might have gotten picked up in the sump area here on the case. Luckily, that's, I think, where most of the contaminants went, and that's probably what saved this from being much worse. So we'll get going on the reassembly of the lower end, clean everything up, and we'll probably start taping again at the point where we're going to put the cylinders on. All right, guys, so stay tuned and we'll see where we go from here. All right, guys, as you can see, we have our balancer shafts in, everything's timed up. Let me zoom in and just give you a little shot here and show you a couple pointers. Obviously, these are our special tools that we need. These hold the lifter for the chain adjuster in place while we're working on it. Also, these hold the balancer shaft in place, so when we're timing the chain, we get everything correctly. There's 3 darker links, one for the rear, one for the front, and then the timing mark on the crank. You want to make sure those are all lined up. Everything's been cleaned, it looks good. You don't just want to pull these and let them snap up, so I'll hold it down with my fingers and let it slowly come up. It's just spring pressure. There's obviously no oil in there right now, same with this one. And also, I'll point this out real quick. When you're using this tool, you're going to see this small little ball here. You want to make sure when you pull the pin that the ball is still in the tool. I've heard nightmare scenarios where this wears out from being used so much the ball falls out into the case and destroys an engine. So we don't want that. Matter of fact, at this point I can actually take these out because I'm not going to have to worry about the alignment anymore. And then I'm going to force this down with my hand and let that come up really slow. Same with this side. Not bad strength for an old guy, huh? Okay. So I'm going to clean the case halves again, just make sure they're totally clean. I actually hit them with a little lacquer thinner also, just to make sure they're spotless. And then we're going to do our case half install. We'll torque up the bolts and we'll get it in the chassis. So things are moving along well. I know the parts are on their way from our friends over at S&S, and we'll get this reassembled and we will get my client back on the road. Okay, guys, we're ready to seal up the right side case here with Harley-Davidson crankcase sealer. It's all I ever use. It's about 54 thousandths in width. I don't brush it on. I put a small bead just like Harley's always recommended. I haven't ever had issues with excess getting in the crankcase if you do it correctly, so I still do it the old-fashioned way, and it works for me. We have our bolts all cleaned up and ready to go. So we're going to get the sealant in, get the cases together, and move on. And we have a guide here for the shaft, help guide the case on. Everything is lubed up and we're good to go. Just a quick double check here. We also have our interconnect seal in. That's so the oil transfers from the cam cover through the case, or I should say the cam support plate through the case into the chain tensioners. So we have a new one of those in position and we should be good to go here. Gently put this in position. Make sure I didn't just... See, I touched that chain right there. That's not good. Gotta recheck that. Make sure I might have to touch that up. You have to be so careful when you're doing the assembly. Remove any of the sealant. There we go. Nice and smooth, easy peasy. All right, these bolts do not take Loctite. No Loctite on these. Contrary to what a lot of people might think, they do not take Loctite. Okay, rotate this around gently here. I do have a nice engine stand and I never use it. I don't know, it just seems to be easier this way. And now we can torque these. We do everything at 10 foot-pounds first, and then a final torque to about 19 foot-pounds. So go to 10, and I always go along and retorque all of them, counting in my head, and make sure I get the proper amount of bolts torqued. That way you know you didn't miss any. And that's that. Now what I also do is I take the time to go in through the case here and get any excess of the sealant that I can get to. Usually wet my finger, pull up on it here. You get about 5 minutes to work with this stuff. I like to get it out of the O-ring area too for the cylinders. So that's it. We're going to get these cases installed. It's going to be a little difficult for me because I have to put a couple of the oil lines on because of that foolish shifter. But Normally I wouldn't do it that way. I'm gonna have to do like a workaround. But we're making good progress. All right, guys, we are back on our project. It's been a couple weeks. I had to wait for S&S to get the parts to me. I just want to go out and say to Scott and Chris, I mean, Scott's been at S&S, I think, as long as I've been in the motorcycle industry. I've known him for so long. No problem. They sent me a whole new kit. They even went and watched the video and saw how, we're very careful not to set these cylinders on the spigots, and no problem at all. So we have all new parts. Our engine case is in. What I haven't shown you is I've flushed this tank multiple times with basically kerosene, and then I've flushed about 4 quarts of synthetic oil through it, the same oil that I will be running in the motorcycle. So all the lines have been cleaned out. I mean, we've gone through everything. So all new bearings in the lower end. What else can I think of? Obviously we have new pistons here, our CP pistons, S&S cams, everything that comes in the kit, the new pump, new cam bearings, which I have not installed yet. I didn't know if I had an extra set I had put in. I'm in the process of cleaning up the heads, and pretty much every single component will get cleaned before it's reassembled in the motorcycle. So I really appreciate S&S for stepping up. They know I've done, I don't know how many big bore kits I've done and never had an issue. This is the first one. And this is what happens when you have a quality shop. We stand behind our product, and guys like S&S, fueling these other companies that I deal with, Drag Specialties, they stand behind their products also, and I can't say enough good things about these companies. So I have Tom in the dyno room tuning an engine. I just wrapped up my good friend Gabriel's bike with some 577 Torquester Star racing cams from George Bryce in it, and new set of flywheels. So he's tuning that for me, and it's going to get a little loud in here even with the dyno room. So what I'll do is just start the assembly process. We won't have a lot of commentary because unless I find something that I really need to point out, but you can go back to earlier videos and see assembly videos where we point out a lot of little things that go on in these kits. So let's get the assembly going. I appreciate you watching. I have my hot caffeinated beverage, and let's get cooking.
I've been star of minute plays. I've seen better days. And the bottom drops out.
All right, guys, you know how excited I get? It's time to put the fuel tank on. That means the end of the project is near. Everything's gone well. Last thing I'll do here, once we get the fuel tank installed and the dash on, I have to prime the pump, cycle the engine a few times, and then I am going to go through and take a look at the timing tables, make sure there's not too much advance inside those tables. I've already looked at them even prior to, before the bike initially went out, because Thundermax is famous for having way too much timing in their maps. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to go in and pull out 10%, constantly do that. So, and I remember the map that we actually have in here has been run on multiple vehicles, so that's really not going to be any type of an issue. And then we'll do some testing and hopefully be able to deliver it to my customer. All right, it's getting closer. Make my life easier if I go back in the air with this. The older I get, the less I want to work on the ground. All right, we got the fuel tank on. I was going to turn it over so I could prime the pump. I've shown you before, I put a little air in the oil tank to help get the oil into the pump as I crank it over with the plug wires, not on the plugs. But charge the battery all night, but guess what? Battery chargers only work when you plug them in, and guess what dummy didn't plug in the charger? Me. So now I have to charge the battery. So I'm gonna put some air in the tires. I gotta go get some fuel because I'm out of fuel in the shop, so we can fill up the tank. By then hopefully the battery will be charged up enough that I can turn it over, prime the pump, and then we'll do a first start. So thanks for bearing with me. Okay guys, I think we're ready to give this a first start. I've primed the pump, air in the tires. Hopefully the battery's charged up enough. It was charged enough to turn it over to be able to prime the pump. And I also noticed I had a blown headlight bulb, so I had to replace that. Let's give her a shot here. Stand by to stand by. Cross your fingers. That sounded really good. We have oil pressure, return to the tank. I wish I could give you a better angle here, but I'm so jammed up in the shop, especially when I'm on the Trike bench. It's difficult for me to give you guys decent angles, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna run some heat cycles on this, quick 30, 40 seconds or so. I'm gonna let it completely cool down. I'm gonna put a fan on it. I'll start it again for a minute, shut it down, same procedure. Start it again, we'll go for maybe 2.5 minutes, maybe 3. Shut it down, cool it off again. And then one more heat cycle and we'll bring the throttle up a little bit, maybe to 1500 RPMs or so. Cut it, let it cool off, and then we'll start putting some test miles on it. I am gonna plug in the laptop just to look at my timing tables one more time on the Thunder Max. I did some comparisons last night because I had taken some screenshots of his original map, and they match right up with other ones that have never had an issue. So I think we're gonna be good there, but we'll take one more look. I may pull a degree of timing out, but probably not any more than that. And probably just out of the heat side of the map. You know, our issue is rear cylinder out of round, and the rear piston started to deteriorate, and of course that caused all our problems. I have done, I don't know how many of these S&S kits, it's a lot, and never had an issue. I've heard of issues, luckily for me, never had an issue. Luckily for me, and my reputation with, you know, S&S I've had over the years, you know, they came up to the plate, gave me all new parts. Of course, I have to eat all the labor here, so hopefully I'll have a happy customer, do the best I can. If he blows it up again, I will be quite honest, he'd be on his own. You know, I'll take care of it once, but if it happens a second time, and I know this thing has been put together perfectly, I mean, I took so much time cleaning and reassembling this that there's just nothing was missed. That I know. So, something happened again, customer and I would be having a real heart-to-heart, but I don't think that'll be the case. Anyway, I really thank you all for watching. I'm going to go take this for a test ride probably later today, maybe tomorrow, and then I'll deliver it to my customer. So again, please like, subscribe, and share this, you know, share this with your friends. I really appreciate it. And more content coming. New machinery is coming into the shop that I'm really excited about. We're going to do a whole video series on that, and pretty much I won't have to send anything out of this shop anymore except for chrome paint, and I still will send my cylinders out to be bored for now. That may change later, but we have some real exciting stuff coming. And there's the compressor. So you guys, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching.
You like my Gucci bag?
That's beautiful, beautiful. Check it out. I'm bent like glass, secondhand like glory. Missed the bus, but I'm in no hurry. Molasses fast, no business born.
Under blue moon I saw you. So soon you'll take me up in your arms, too late to beg you or cancel it, though I know it must be the killing time, unwillingly mine. Fate up against your will, through the thick and thin, he will wait until